Hello there. I'm Dr. Autumn, leadership consultant, wellness coach, author, and I'm incredibly grateful to be your host of the Align Living podcast. I'm here to equip you with the tools, inspiration, and practical tips necessary to lead a life of wholeness and pursue greater shalom in your life and that of your families, teams, and communities. My mission is to empower you to lead from a place of holistic well-being. It's time to say peace out to the fatigue, fog, and frustration of living in a place that lacks abundant well-being. Join me as we embark on a comprehensive exploration of spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, social, and economic well-being, all within the comforting embrace of one podcast. Hey, good people, Dr. Autumn here, and welcome back to the Aligned Living podcast. I am really excited to have the opportunity to chat with you today about how to live life well, even when things are super difficult, even when faced with challenges and experiencing some of our greatest struggles. Because in this pursuit of aligned living, we want to be able to pursue wholeness and be well, whether we're on a mountaintop or in a pit. Okay. And so I think this is just a super relevant conversation to have because life is lifing. Things are always happening. So how do we sit in the suck well? It's a really important question because if we don't know how to do this, life will constantly be up and down. And we want to know how to build a strong foundation of health and to be able to maintain that even when things are hard. So by the end of this episode, I hope that you have this renewed energy and even greater clarity around this question of how do you sit in the suck well? Okay. Because in this pursuit of aligned living, like I said, it won't always be smooth sailing. As a matter of fact, many times it just won't be. So interestingly, a couple of months ago when I knew that I wanted to produce an episode on this topic, just, largely because it's been essential to my own progress and holistic wellness journey. I've experienced some pretty stressful seasons, and I will tell you, I was so grateful to have this foundation so that I can, move through that space of, being in a pit and do it well, and so I wanted to turn around and provide some insights to you because I know many of you on this life's journey will enter into seasons where you're faced with hardship you weren't anticipating and you want to be able to do that well. So, and then, ironically, since that, I realized I wanted to do this episode a couple months ago, I have spoken to so many people, from family and friends and neighbors and even strangers, to be honest, that have expressed to me these goals that they have that they really want to work towards, um, you know, sharing with me that they want to be better and feel better. However, life just keeps getting in the way, right? Okay, so I want to start there. I've really reflected on this, and life getting in the way is a narrative that you want to crush. It's super unhelpful. It does not serve you. So this is the starting point. This narrative does not serve you. So catch yourself when barriers become excuses. That's the first step, right? Because life will always be happening. And so, let's go from there. So I engaged with these folks and then just considered my own experience and expertise. And I'm convicted that part of the process of pursuing a more aligned life and well-being is embracing challenges as part of the journey. Don't wait for a moment when challenges are obsolete, and don't keep trying to create a perfect quote unquote system for making progress. Don't put off until the next day what you can begin today. Because that putting off becomes a dangerous habit, because next thing you know, you've put off until the next day something 365 times. And then holy crap, like a year just passed you by. All right, so that's what we don't want. So, an essential part of this journey to living a life well lived, this pursuit of wholeness that we talk about in Aligned Living, is being able to sit in the suck well. That's why we're asking this question, and that's what I hope to shed some light on for you today. Because then you don't become paralyzed by this, like, I just don't feel like it. Like when I was thinking about all the conversations I've had, even in the last couple of months, um, being able to live an aligned life, we have to be able to do it when we're in a pit, right? But what keeps getting in people's way? This, like, I just don't feel like it. And that leads to to putting things off. Okay. And that leads to feeling even worse. Okay. So let's begin. I want to give you some really practical tools here. The next time you know what you should do, but then you think to yourself, I just don't feel like it, do it anyways. Like, that's what I'm telling you. Have some really good self-awareness, and when you hear yourself telling yourself, I know I should do this, but I just don't feel like it, do it anyways. Like, that is my advice to you if you walk away from anything from this episode today. But I want to get a little more practical for you. So one thing that could be super helpful is building a new narrative around this idea so that no matter how you're feeling, you're going to continue your rhythms in support of your goals, right? So it's shifting your narrative so that you're not making choices around how you feel, but what you know you should do. So then you're not only doing things when you feel like it. Okay? So that's the narrative we're changing. Like, as a matter of fact, become a person who does the right things, especially when you don't feel like it. So that's your new narrative, not that, oh man, this life happens. I'm going to wait till I find balance. I'm going to wait until this. I'm going to wait until that. I'm going to keep putting it off. Like, your new narrative is, I am a person that is going to do something, especially when I don't feel like it, because I know it's the right thing to do. Okay. Easier said than done, right? All right. Sure. But it doesn't have to be hard. Okay. So, how do you sit in the suck well? All right, there's a couple things that I'm going to touch on here. One is preparation. It's building this foundation of aligned living when things are a little less challenging, when there's a little less struggle in your life, right? Um, I was actually at a barbecue with some neighbors, and to be honest, I can't remember the full context of the conversation, but what my friend said stuck with me. I just absolutely loved it. She goes, "You don't got to get ready if you stay ready." Like, I literally had her repeat that because I'm like, "What'd you say?" She said, you don't gotta get ready if you stay ready. Okay. I love this. For me, it was so real, especially in some of the seasons of life I had just gotten out of. How is this related to aligned living, the pursuit of wholeness? Well, if you are ready so that when life is really lifing, you don't got to get ready. You see what I'm saying? You're already there. You've already built that foundation. And so what does this look like? It's the foundation that we're talking about here. Like, what does it look like to build a solid foundation to function from when life does get hard? So let me ask you this. Like, if you had an honest conversation with yourself, what does your foundation look like? When you're talking about health, like holistic health, when you're talking about aligned living, we're looking at those 6 areas of wellness. And we're going to touch on each of those 6 areas in this episode just to give you some really practical takeaways. Because remember, your foundation needs all 6 of those bricks. That's the whole idea of aligned living. They're interconnected, they're intimately intertwined. You can't focus on one without focusing on the other 5 because they are so related, right? So I'm going to go through them just because this is an essential component of sitting in the suck well. It's an essential component of building that foundation. So if you're going to stay ready, okay, part of that is remembering what I talked about really early on in an early episode of this podcast. I called it ISR, but that stands for intentional sustainable rhythms. And you can go back to, I'll put it in the show notes, like which episode early on I talked about this in detail, because when I keep talking about like pivoting and rhythms, like that episode really covers a lot of what those foundational concepts mean for you. But I love this word rhythm because it ebbs and flows with life. This is why you've heard me say before, likely if you've been following this podcast, is I don't love the word balance, because balance is just kind of inevitable fail. We don't find balance. Like, life is actually much more about seasons. It ebbs and flows, So I love the word rhythms, because we can find rhythms to support our overall well-being or our shalom, and then maintain that even when things are not the same. All right, no matter what's going on. Again, whether you're on a mountaintop or a valley, right? And so I love rhythms. So this helps you stay ready, right? So some examples of rhythms in an effort to build that solid foundation. Let's just go through these 6 bricks. Okay, so you have spiritual formation or your spiritual wellness, right? If you start now and thinking like, how can I really grow in relationship with God? How can I establish rhythms that no matter what I'm going through? Because let me tell you, physical, emotional, mental, social, economic, they're all super, super important. But whether on a mountaintop or in a valley, like, our spiritual wellness, our connection with God is so essential, because it informs every other area in a way that is just so powerful that it helps you make the right choices and do the right things, especially when you don't feel like it, right? And so start doing some of those things now. Establish like just habits of like prayer throughout the day, like connecting with God, like remembering his truths about you, right? There's so many different things that we could do that just support our spiritual formation that you want to, start doing now. Our physical health, right? Like, think about basic things like your water intake, your stress management, how well you rest, movement, moving your body throughout the day. Um, of course, eating, nutrition's a really, really big one. I've done an entire episode just breaking down like some foundational ideas around nutrition and how to fuel your body well. So you start doing some of these rhythms now, then they're already part of your routine when life hits you really hard. Emotional and mental well-being, right? These things are super interconnected as it relates to our feelings, which give us information and help, inform, some of our, met and unmet needs and so on and so forth. Emotions are just a really, really good tool. It's just about, regulating and managing them well, and really self-awareness. And then that could, that plays a role in informing your thoughts and your thought processes. Of course, our mental wellness has a lot to do with our thoughts, which, our non-conscious, subconscious thoughts make up a big part of our personality. So it's really important to be aware of these things and integrating rhythms just to help, maybe counter some of the negative thought patterns that you have, and to produce healthier thought patterns in your life, right? Social and economic wellness, establishing rhythms around these are really important too. Like, how you're, managing your finances, your view of money, social wellness, the community you're building, like how you're serving and giving back to those in need, the friendships that you formed, other, family and intimate relationships, like, are they healthy or are they toxic? Are they life giving? Do they have mutual benefit? These are all good things to start building now, because this is the foundation that I'm talking about. So when life hits you really hard, you will be amazed at the difference of how you can lean on this foundation that you built when you do it in advance. You don't got to get ready if you stay ready. That's gonna be a favorite quote of mine for life. I just know it. So you see, like, when you get ready now, when life hits you a little harder, you're ready for what comes at you. You've invested in this solid foundation. You're living more aligned. So when you're like in a moment where like, this really sucks, like, I remember I have tears streaming from my eyes and just, talking to, a few people that I'm really close to, and just saying like, this sucks. But you can be present in that place in a healthy way. That's the difference. Like, I was still showing up. I was still eating right, which helped me take care of my kids better. I was still getting out in nature, going for walks. Actually, my time with God increased. I had my regular rhythms, but it increased. It was so life-giving, and just managing my emotions and my thoughts while leaning on healthy relationships. Then you could say, this sucks, but you could still feel healthy. Like, even if emotionally you don't feel like happy, happy, joy, joy, like, you could still be healthy. Okay. No, I'm not talking about trying to climb out of that pit immediately. Okay. So sometimes I'm sitting in the suck well, it doesn't mean like, oh my gosh, I just got to kind of like push through what I'm going through and like try to get out of this pit. Like sometimes we need to sit there for a minute. Like grieving's a real thing. Like lamenting, these are all like important processes in our wellness. But how do you kind of sit in that pit in a healthy way, okay, so that when you do kind of come out of it, you're still you're in a decent place, you know what I'm saying? So I am talking about the reality of life, that sometimes we are struggling. So, what I want for you is for you to not struggle in staying aligned even when life is hard. Okay? Does that make sense? So, I'm saying like we will struggle at times, but if you can stay aligned even when life is really hard, it's going to decrease the impact of that struggle significantly. It won't be as difficult to do something you don't want to do if you've already established these rhythms, like you know what to do, it's already a part of your habits. Now you may not feel like doing them, but honestly, that is the key to being well, whether you're on a mountaintop or in a pit, is to do the thing when you don't feel like it. Like if I was to say one line, if you were, how do you sit in the suck well? It'd be do it when you don't feel like it. Like that's it. Like I could literally have said those two lines and this podcast episode would be complete. But just to give you just some more like practical insights into what this specifically looks like, what some things that you could do, or even if you have a friend that you're like, I know I have a friend or family member, somebody going through a hard time, like you should shed some of these like, gold nuggets with them. So this gap that I keep talking about, right? Like this gap that exists in part, um, because a lack of rhythms, really. Like we have a desire of where we want to be, and then we have a current reality of where we are. So what is contributing to this gap? I mean, I continue to talk about this in every episode in some way, but I think in part this gap exists because we're just waiting. Like we're always waiting on something. We're waiting on the right time or to feel right or something like that. That's why like this whole message, like do it when you don't feel like it's so essential. It really, really helps bridge that gap. So to begin closing that gap between where you are and where you want to be, I'm going to talk about just three really quick things, just reinforce 3 points that you could take away from this, because it's just this is an inevitable reality, right? So, number one, remember you don't got to get ready if you stay ready. Like, build a foundation of aligned living now. If you find yourself just continually waiting or putting things off, ask yourself why, and under no circumstances keep waiting, right? So you're going to be honest and you're going to take action. Conclude that this honest conversation with yourself, like conclude it with a commitment to take at least one step forward in building that solid foundation. All right. So what you don't want is, while you're waiting around, something hits you really, really hard, and then how you handle that hit depends largely on your overall well-being. Like, do you have a foundation of aligned living there or not, right? So that's what I don't want. Like waiting around till the right time to start building that foundation, then you get hit. And it's just harder to handle that hit well. You see what I'm saying? I want you to be able to handle that situation well. I want you to be able to be well in the midst of the suck. Okay. So do the work now, like not when an emergency warrants it. You know what I find so interesting about this is it seems like common sense. Like, I have, when I have conversations with people, like most of us love the idea of prevention, right? Arguably everyone loves the idea of prevention. Nobody wants to go through things. Preventing an illness, preventing a toxic relationship, preventing emotional breakdown, preventing mental messes, preventing even crash and burning, right? Like preventing a health emergency. But the thing about prevention is it requires immediate action. It's like taking initiative now, even when things might be going better, so that you're ready when something happens, right? Like we talk about this a lot with finances, right? Like prepare now so if something happens, you be good. But we don't talk about this as much in these other areas of life, right? And so that's the first thing. Like start preparing, start building that foundation. Remember, you don't got to get ready if you stay ready. Okay. I love that quote. Okay. So when life happens, this is number two, Pivot, don't quit. Okay, this is a big part of the intentional sustainable rhythms. What are rhythms? They're things we've implemented that allow for pivoting. Okay. It's not an all or nothing mindset. Like, this is how I've been doing it. Well, life happened. I can't do it exactly like that, but I can keep doing something. Like, that's pivoting. So, pivot, don't quit. This is number two. Routines are so good, but remember, the best routines are malleable. Like, they could shift when they need to shift. The what that you're doing, was eating healthy, for example, stays the same, but the how and the when may look different. That is pivoting. So important. Number three, no matter how you're feeling, do the things you know you need to do, even when you don't feel like it. Okay, I think I've said that probably 10 times in this short episode here, but like, I just really want to drive it home. So when you are in that moment, I'm not feeling it, you're going to remember this. Remember what I said. You say, I'm going to do it anyways. Okay. Do it even when you don't feel like it. This is like one declaration I stood on in all seasons of my life, no matter what I was going through, especially when I was sitting in the suck. It's like, Autumn, you don't feel like it right now, but I'm going to do it anyways. Okay. And the truth is, no matter your upbringing, your intention, your circumstances, whatever, there will be a time when you're like, this really sucks. It's not like you could just get through without this happening to you. Aligned living then is really all about this pursuit of wholeness, or making progress towards holistic well being, so that you can sit in the suck well when it does happen, right? So establishing rhythms now and then keep doing them even when you have to pivot, even when you don't feel like it. Like, that's the take home. Now, some of you might be thinking, and I want to address something really, really important. What if you're in a tough spot, like right now? Like, you're listening to this and you're like, I just got hit. Like, I'm struggling right now. Like, and then you don't have time to build a foundation in preparation, or like the prevention thing. You're like, I'm in it. Like, I can't prevent now. I'm in it. Okay, this could be your child is just really struggling with school, or your best friend's navigating a heartbreak, or you find out a family member has an addiction, or a close neighbor slash friend loses her job, or you lose your job. A friend or colleague loses their life to gun violence. I mean, the list goes on and on. You realize you've been in an abusive marriage or situation and you're not sure how to move forward. Like, here's my advice to you. If you're in this space now, still don't wait. Okay. Start building the foundation while you're in the pit. Okay. Everything else still applies. Like, find rhythms to support each area of well being. You may just have to focus on like a couple things at a time, right? Because you're also going through some other things, but you still are going to do it when you don't feel like it. Um, Truth is, honestly, there were times when I was in a pit and I was doing the things and I didn't always feel that different. I still felt down or hurt or unfocused, or like, you're in the midst of something, you just got hit. You start doing some things, you might not feel like a huge, like drastic difference, because, those feelings, emotions are real. But what I'm telling you is that I knew that I needed to keep doing the things so that I can get to the other side of what I was going through, and to be well while doing it. Because if you don't do those things, the other side doesn't look so good, right? But what is really, really fantastic about this? In those seasons of life, there's so many things outside of our control. And if we get too caught up in all the things outside our control, it just can leave us in a not so good spot, right? But the cool thing about this pursuit of aligned living, no matter, even if you just got hit hard, is that, you could find peace in the reality that you are in control of these things, right? You might not be in control of so many of these things happening outside of you or around you or to you, but you can be in control of what you do for yourself. Okay. So if that means navigating rhythms in your life, even when it's hard, like, do it. It's in your control. It's one thing that you can say, I could wake up and I can pray. I could pray throughout my day, take things to God. I could make a healthy meal. I could choose to eat the right thing. I could go for a walk in nature. I can choose to listen to a podcast that will inspire me. I could choose to read a good book or take a good nap. Get this, you could choose to work on one task, just one, that will take you a step closer to a dream that's been on your heart. That's in your control, even when you are in the suck. Do 20 push ups, drink a whole bunch of water, stay hydrated. Take 5 minutes for some deep breathing exercises, or journal for 5 minutes, intentionally writing down truths that counter negative thoughts or even lies you've been told by others or even yourself. How about this one? Name out loud 10 things you're grateful for. I will tell you, when I was in the suck, when I do this, it changed your perspective. And sometimes a shift in perspective is all we need to get a little boost for your day. Call a friend, even if you don't feel like it. Someone you know will be there for you. Go hang out with someone you know will make you laugh. Never, never, never let yourself isolate. So this is just the start of a very, very, very long list of things that you can do that's in your control that will support your pursuit of aligned living. And no matter what, just remember to do something you know you should do, even when you don't feel like it. Okay, so now for Coach Autumn's practice of the day. I feel like this entire episode was like a practice, but practice does not make perfect. It makes permanent, right? That's what we're talking about here. So today's tip, specifically, I want to bring awareness to the next time you find yourself telling yourself, I will just do this later. I will get to it tomorrow. I'll start this plan Monday. Like, how many times we keep putting these things off, and I'm saying don't wait. Like, that's my practice. Like, it's very practical, because what we're saying is the next time in your head with anything you say, I'm just going to put this off, I'm going to wait, well, I'll just start tomorrow, I don't feel like it. Don't wait. I'm saying do one thing right away. Just pick one, just do one thing right away, because what it does is it gets you in motion. It's a catalyst for other good things. So don't let yourself overthink. Just do one thing that same day. And remember, you don't gotta get ready if you stay ready. Let's be a people that know how to sit in the suck and do it well. Thank you for tuning in to the Aligned Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Autumn, your guide on this journey to shalom or wholeness. Ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery and transformation? Head over to autumnswain.com to learn more and to dive deeper into the world of aligned living. Until next time, stay aligned.